Alrighty, so we just got a new update in Helldivers 2 that changed a couple of weapons we just got in the Servants of Freedom warbond, and already people have their pitchforks out and they're already upset with Arrowhead for having the nerve to nerf their new favorite weapons. But what I wanted to do in this video is I wanted to cover these changes and just lay out some scenarios for you guys, and I want to go over what I would do to adjust these things a little bit more in the future and why I think they're actually not that bad overall. But anyways, guys, let's get into it. Starting off with the GP31 Ultimatum, we have seen a lot of mixed player feedback for this weapon on how certain players feel like it trivializes some of the harder content, whilst other players feel like it's just fine and a great addition to the game. So the change they made to this is they actually removed the influence from Hellpod optimization, and also they removed the siege ready armor passive bonus that you get. So this is quote unquote a nerf, and I understand why some people would be a little upset about it, because yes, it does not get the same bonus ammo, especially from siege ready, which was something that I was using pretty regularly and actually something I was speaking on in the video I have coming up on this weapon, which I have to alter. But essentially, basically we get the one shot in the gun and then one reserve shot now at all times, no matter what. This is not that big of a deal, guys. Like, I understand that people were really enjoying having 3 of these available at any given time, but you got to think of how powerful this thing freaking is. They haven't changed the damage values, they haven't changed penetration values. This thing is still a precision strike in these secondary slots, and we get 2 of them. 2 of them that we can get from ammo bricks, that we can get from supply packs, that we can get from resupplies. People can give these back to us by giving us resupplies. There's ammo bricks all over the place. Again, this is not that big of a deal, guys. We have plenty of ways to get these back very quickly. Even still, even if we have 1 less available, it's not a big deal because this thing still operates the exact same. And you can basically have, if you're running a supply pack, right? So you get 4 bricks on your back, and you get 1 back. You get 1 back per a brick. So you're talking like, so you get 2 on your character plus the 4, so that's 6 total shots from this thing, which is stupid. That's 6 precision strikes at any given time, and you're not counting in resupply. So if you want to count those 4, that's 10 total. And then on top of that, if somebody else brings supply packs and they want to give you all their supply packs, that's another 4. So in general, there are plenty of ways to get web ammo for this thing. So while this may be a nerf, I think that this is a balancing tool for this thing, because giving us 3 is just a lot for this weapon. And I'm fine with them doing that because, again, it still operates the same. It still do the same things. Still is having 2 precision strikes in your back pocket. So again, not a big deal, guys. I know that it's annoying to see a nerf, and we're really sensitive to that at this point because they've done some bad nerfs in the past, but this is not a bad one. This is more of a tweak than a nerf, and it's not a big deal in my opinion. And I feel like we should be pretty grateful that Siege Ready operates like it does now, because they actually were going to change this, because essentially it was supposed to be only affecting the primary weapons, but because of a bug that we complain for all the time for Arrowhead having in their warbonds, we ended up getting a good benefit because they decided not to change it. Now this still affects our primaries, secondaries, and a lot of our stratagems. Be grateful for that they haven't changed that. So this weapon, in my opinion, is not that big of a deal to have 1 less little shot per thing. It's not a big deal. We can get plenty of these back during any type of dive or encounter. The bigger change was to the LAS-17 Double Edge Sickle. So we've rebalanced this weapon to make the high risk, high reward dynamic more impactful. The goal is to ensure that it feels like you're truly running a powerful weapon while properly balancing the self-damaging mechanics to reflect its high risk nature. So I'm gonna throw a bunch of numbers at you based on this chart that they gave us, but essentially how it was working was from 0 to 25% heat, we were getting AP3 or medium armor penetration, 55 damage, and this deals 0 damage per second to the player. From 26% to 90% heat, we were getting AP3 again, which is medium armor penetration, 55 damage, and 10 damage per second dealt to the player. At 91% heat, we were getting medium armor penetration once again, 55 damage, and it dealt 50 damage per second to the player and also set the player on fire. The way it works now after the update is from 0 to 25% heat, we get AP2 or light armor penetration, 55 damage, and this deals 0 damage per second to the player. From 26 to 50% heat, we get AP3 or medium armor penetration, 55 damage, and this deals 10 damage per second to the player. From 51% to 90% heat, we get AP3 or or medium armor penetration, 70 damage, and this deals 20 damage per second to the player. And lastly, from 91% heat onward, we get AP4, which is heavy armor penetration, 70 damage, and this deals 50 damage per second to the player and sets the player on fire. We also have the starting magazines adjusted from 1 to 2, and the spare magazines adjusted from 2 to 3. All right, so to super dumb this down for you guys, if you don't quite understand, basically how this worked was before the patch, this thing was always operating at medium armor penetration and at 55 damage. Even if you were taking more damage, even if this thing heated up, it was always the same. Now the weapon starts at light armor penetration up to 25%, switches to medium armor penetration up to 90%, but it also increases in damage on the upper end of that. And then lastly, once it hits that 91% or higher when you're catching on fire, you'll be doing 70 damage plus have heavy armor penetration with this weapon. So when I did my video on this weapon, this is how I thought this was working, because I'm not the only one that saw this, and I'm grateful because I thought I was going crazy in the comments, because people were telling me in the comments it's always medium armor penetration, but I'm like watching the footage and I'm experiencing this thing and I'm like, I'm getting ricochets when I'm shooting medium armor. So that's why I thought that up to 15% we were getting light armor, and then after that we were getting medium armor. That's how I thought it worked, but I was a little bit wrong just because I didn't have the exact percentages. I was just guessing based on the bar, but essentially we do know that it is based on 25% thresholds essentially by the chart. So that's good to know at least, but at the same time, it's just one of those things that it was kind of annoying when I was seeing how it was working before, that we weren't getting any damage increases and it was just a flat medium armor percentage. That was kind of annoying, but I'm glad that they ended up adjusting that with the update. So overall, what are my thoughts on the changes for this weapon? Because it's definitely a lot different than it was yesterday when I was playing with it. So I have quite a few thoughts, quite a few things that I would probably adjust even further in future patches, but I actually like it because it's operating how I thought it was, meaning that I thought you were slowly increasing in damage while you were also getting more armor penetration. I'm glad my assumptions about that were true, because it was really cool. I thought it was a very good way to vary up the play styles, and it felt like you had to build around this weapon, which was great. Now I am glad that they've adjusted this quite a bit, but I am a little bit disappointed on a couple things, meaning that I feel like the light armor is still too high, meaning that 25% is pretty aggressive. I feel like the 15% threshold that I thought it was before was better, meaning that you should be switching to medium armor a lot sooner. That's just kind of what I feel like would be better overall. But outside of that, I feel like it works pretty well, because now you're able to kill Hulks, you're able to kill Chargers, Bile Titans with this thing. The AP4 heavy armor penetration really punches through a lot of things, and honestly, I was destroying the bots with this thing. It was really, really good, but there was a high risk, high reward to it, meaning that now, because of the fact that this thing does so much damage on the upper echelons of the heat, you basically have to run the inflammable armor passive with this. You have no exceptions about that, because you can run acclimated at the bare minimum. That's fine. I'm not going to say you can't, because on the bug side, I feel like acclimated is better, and also against the illuminate, because the illuminates have the added effects of arc, so having the extra 50% against that and fire is good. And then on the bug side, having the 50% resistance to acid and fire, because you're setting yourself on fire, is good as well. So that at the bare minimum is what you should be running. But against the bots especially, you should be running the inflammable armor passive, because you're going to be able to keep it there, catch on fire a little bit, and stay alive a lot longer. The other thing too that is kind of very much necessary with this thing is running vitality, because that paired with either acclimated or inflammable will basically make you not take nearly as much damage from these various effects that you get from the weapon. So those are two crutch things that are basically required for this weapon. But outside of that, you have some pretty good flexibility here, meaning you can run some other things in other slots, because we've never had a primary that can destroy Hulks and Chargers and things like that straight on, right? We've always had to have ways to take off the armor plating or get behind the Hulks to shoot the vents or something like that. No, we can literally just stare a Hulk down in the face, heat this gun up, and then absolutely destroy them in seconds once this thing hits the AP4, which is ridiculous. So that is very, very cool overall. But yeah, I don't want to just completely have a love affair with this weapon, because I do think it's still a top tier weapon in the game when used correctly and with the right variables in place. But I do understand why people were pretty upset about the change, because we don't really have that many medium armor weapons in the game in terms of assault rifles and you know, various things in those categories. We're kind of limited on those, so I understand why people are really excited to have a very fun gun in the medium armor penetration category. So I think that there is kind of a balance that we can get here, right? Meaning, I understand not everybody wants to run inflammable and all these different things to make this weapon work. I personally like it, and you know, I think that it adds some good variety, but at the same time, I understand why people don't. So my solution to this is to have two modes very similar to the railgun, meaning that we have a safe mode and an unsafe mode. Meaning that in safe mode, it is the exact way the old way worked, meaning it's always medium armor penetration, always does 55 damage, and will slowly heat up, and you will have the same things, but it only heats up to a certain point, and that's it, and it can't heat past that. Or maybe it can heat up, but you need to swap out the clip. I think that's totally fair, and you can operate in safe mode. You can run whatever armor you want. You don't have to worry about fire damage. You're good to go, right? And then we can have the unsafe mode, which actually heats up the weapon exactly how it is now, increases the damage, increases the penetration even more, and I feel like gives us that high risk, high reward, because that's exactly how the railgun works. We get a mode that's stops it at a certain point and will only cap the damage at some point, and then we have the mode that allows us to unhinge the damage and make it even better, but while also giving us the side effect of blowing up the gun if we take it too far. So I think that's one option. Not sure how feasible that is, but I feel like that would make everybody happy, meaning you can run whatever mode you want and you still get your medium armor penetration weapon if you want, or you get this weapon that has this high risk, high reward. I think that that's one solution. There's another solution that I don't think is going to work too well with this weapon, and the reason why I think they gave it light armor penetration to start is they could just make it flat medium armor penetration to start like they do now and just have it operate all the way up to heavy armor penetration. That is possible as well, but I don't know if that'd make it too overpowered. But the one thing they can do is make it not 25%, but make it 15% of the ammo of the magazine is going to be AP2 or light armor penetration, so they can do that as well. But again, I understand both sides, right? Personally, in my opinion, I love this weapon still. I think it's absolutely fun against the bots. It's absolutely overpowered against them. It's really, really good. Against the bugs, I don't love it as much as I did a couple days ago. Against the illuminate, it operates just the same, and I think it's great. But in general, I love this weapon. I think it is an absolute S tier weapon still in the right hands. You pair it with inflammable and vitality, you're going to be surviving a lot. You're going to be able to destroy a lot of the heavier units now. It's just great for that reason. But I totally see why some people would be upset about this change, because having a really good medium armor penetration weapon is pretty rare in my opinion, because there's always some downsides to it. Alrighty guys, well that's it for this video. I will catch you guys in the next one. Peace.